Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. And today I'm coming to you with my October wrap-up. I actually have filmed this in the same way that I filmed my wrap-up in September, where I filmed part of it about halfway through the month and then the rest of it at the end of the month. So I've done that again, so you're gonna have to bear with the outfit change and the lighting change, but you know, it's fine. It just is so much easier for me to do it this way than it is to do it the traditional way, so this is what you're getting. So in the month of October, I managed to read 6 books. One of them was for school, but the other 5 were for enjoyment. So I do have a lot to say. But before I start talking about the books, a couple of things. One, I'm currently running a giveaway. So if you're interested in entering my giveaway, I will link it up in the card. It's running till the end of this month, so you've got plenty of time to go enter. But if you're interested, you can click on the link over there and enter. And also, before I start talking about all of the books, as per usual, the description will have the timestamp for each book. And then also with that, it will have the link to the Goodreads page, as well as any content warnings that you may need. So now that all the housekeeping is done, let me pass the torch over to Samantha from the past, and she's going to talk to you about the first 4 books that I read this month. We'll talk about the first 4 books that I've read so far this month. I'm very impressed with myself that I've already read 4 books, and actually at the point of filming this, I'm almost finished a 5th book. Considering the fact that classes started this month and they've been pretty intense, and I'm also spending so much time with my roommates, I'm pretty impressed that I actually managed to finish 4 books already. Although one of them is for class, so I'll only talk about it briefly. So the first book that I finished in the month of October was An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I actually started this on the last day of September. I meant to read it in September, but I got very behind on things. So yeah, I started it on the last day of September. I finished this like literally 15 minutes before the live show. I'm not going to talk about this super in depth because we do already have a like hour-long live show on Deja's channel, so I'll link that up in the card in case you're interested if you've read the book and you want to hear spoilery thoughts. This basically follows our 2 main characters, Laia and Elias. Basically, Laia's brother has been captured by the Empire and he is accused of being part of the rebel group. And so to get him out of prison, Laia goes and finds the rebel group and joins them. And basically, Laia becomes a spy for the resistance at the Blackcliff Academy, which is a ruthless military academy where they train up soldiers to fight for the Empire, obviously. And there her path crosses with Elias, who is a mask in training. Masks are the Empire soldiers, and so he is a mask in training, but he really does not want to be a mask. That is not what he wants to do. He's actually at the beginning of the book planning to run away, and their paths cross. And basically, I don't really want to go into much more detail than that. I loved this book. This was actually my second time reading this, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which I think is higher than my initial rating. I think initially I gave it 4 stars, but when I first read this, I found Laia to be such an annoying character. And when I reread it, I think because I'm older now, I kind of like definitely understood more of where she was coming from and why she was having sort of internal conflict. It made a lot more sense to me now that I'm older, so I really did not find her as annoying. Anyway, this book is amazing. It has one of my favorite tropes as well, which is the like trials trope. There's that in this, and then also just like it's just this book is just really good. I'm very excited to read the next book and discuss it with the gals. Oh, I forgot to say, if you don't know, I am one of the co-hosts of the Ember Along, which is a read-along for the entire Ember in the Ashes series. And we started in September with this book. And so in October, we're reading A Torch Against the Night. And hopefully the second clip I insert, I've read the book by then, but our live show will be on November 7th. You still have time to read this book and read the next book. Well, depending on when I post this, but hopefully you still have time to join us. And obviously the live shows, once they're filmed, will be up. So you can join us whenever, really. This was so good. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Probably more like a 5. I'm trying to be more ruthless with my 5 stars and only give them out to like favorites. And I don't know if this is a favorite. Maybe A Torch Against the Night will be a favorite. I don't know. But this is a really good start to a series. The next book that I read was the book that I read for class, and that was Aura by Carlos Fuentes. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this because also I don't rate books that I read for school because I end up having to look at them in so much detail that by the end of it, I'm just so sick of it. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but this is basically a novella about our main character called Felipe. Felipe sees this ad in the newspaper for someone to come and stay at this house and basically translate these works from French into Spanish. It's set in Mexico City, and then he goes to this house to translate these works, and he ends up being completely captivated by Aura, who is the niece of Consuelo, who is the woman who hires him. My prof keeps on describing it as a ghost story, but like I don't really see it as a ghost story. But yeah, I don't know, it's an interesting novella. For me personally, like we were talking about it in class today, and I was just thinking like I need more details to like fully appreciate this. I think it's a bit bit too short for it really to like make sense to me. Like I just don't understand the motivations behind the characters. So for me personally, this isn't like something that I would reread outside of class. The next book that I read was Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia, or I should say finished. I actually started this in September and it took me about 3 weeks to read. This book is an extremely slow-paced book for me personally. It basically follows our main character Cassiopeia, and it's set in Mexico in the 1920s, and basically Cassiopeia is not treated very well in her family. She kind of just does all the housework and stuff for her grandfather, and her cousin Martine treats her really badly. And one day she ends up freeing one of the Mayan gods of death, and they go on this adventure all throughout Mexico to try and get Huncame back onto his throne. And that's basically all you need to know. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't that I disliked it, it's just that I think partially one of the issues is that it took me so long to read it, but also I heard Elena from Elena the Great. You know how I feel about her. I love her channel. If you're new here and you don't know, she's one of my favorite people ever. Anyway, she mentioned that this book kind of lacks urgency, and I feel like that is exactly it. They're on this mission and there is a time limit and it's like very pressing, but everything just seems so leisurely, and it's just like, come on, pick up the pace. Like, this is supposed to be intense. This is literally life or death. Just like, it wasn't anything super memorable for me, but I will say it is pretty beautifully written. Like, I really think that Silvia Moreno Garcia has like a really nice writing style. It just, yeah, it lacked urgency, so it was kind of a weird one for me because it's supposed to be this like high stakes adventure story, and it just didn't feel that way at all. I will say that something really interesting for me personally about this book was the setting of Mexico, because if you don't know, I did my year abroad in Mexico and I love Mexico with all of my heart. It is such a beautiful country. I love it a lot. Anyway, so it was really fun for me to see some of the places that I've been to before. Something especially cool for me was that they went to the Carnival in Veracruz, and I actually did that in February of this year, so that was really cool for me to see that. I went to a couple of places that I've been to. Sadly, they didn't go to where I like lived, because that would have just been like, I would have cried because I just love I love it so much. I want to go back. But they did go mostly up the East Coast and then kind of like around through Mexico City. It was an interesting read and it was definitely fun, but it just like, it's not a new favorite or anything. It was good. I would recommend it if it sounds interesting to you, but it's not something that's gonna stick with me for a long time, I don't think. 3 out of 5 stars. Good, but not my favorite thing ever. And the last book that I read is probably one of the most unpopular opinions ever, and I'm scared. I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. If you don't know what this book is about, somehow it has been everywhere. Basically follows our 2 main characters, Alex, who is the son of the President of America, and Henry, who is the Prince of Wales. Basically, they get into a public fight and they have to pretend to be friends to clear the air, and then something happens between them romantically. And that's the basic premise. This book is pitched as like an enemies to lovers story, which I guess it is in some ways, but that part is resolved so quickly, and then it's literally just them fucking a lot. Yeah, that's the whole book. Just them fucking. Basically, there's like this twist at the end, and I saw it coming from a mile away because like, who wouldn't see that coming? And basically, I just did not like anything about this book, pretty much. I just was bored. The issues that I had with this book are that, first of all, it deals a lot with American politics, which obviously is something that I'm interested in that I want to know who is gonna be the next president, and I want it to be someone different. Me editing this on the 4th of November, like, I still want to know, obviously. So obviously I care about politics in America, but I'm not that interested in how it all works. I care, but I'm also just like not that invested that I want to know so much detail, and I feel like there was a lot of detail because Alex wants to go into politics, and so it's just like he's so invested in it, and I was just like, I don't care. So that was one of my issues, was just like the stuff about politics. I was just like, I'm not that bothered. But then also, in a romance book, you're gonna have to like the characters who are in a relationship to actually like the book, you know? And I did not like Alex or Henry. They both freaking sucked, in my opinion. There wasn't anything that wrong with them. They just annoyed me so much. And I think maybe it was partially due to the fact that I listened to this on audiobook, so it could have been due to the narration. But yeah, I just didn't like them. I was just like, I don't care about you guys at all. It's not that there was anything necessarily wrong with the book, it just wasn't the book for me. I will say it is really long, and it's like over 400 pages, and for a romance book, that's a little bit ridiculous. I also think that it was a little bit repetitive because, like I said, after they get over the hatred part, it's literally them having sex a lot. And I was just like, okay, we get it. They're fucking. let's move on. I gave it 2 stars, but I'm actually questioning that and thinking maybe it's a 1.5, which like I know it's very specific, but it's like I didn't quite hate it, but there was nothing really redeeming for me. I'm gonna settle for 2 stars for now. It wasn't for me, and I'm really sorry. I love the fact that so many people love this book. Just yeah, it wasn't for me. It's a shame because I wanted to love it. Anyway, those are the 4 books that I've read so far. I will be back. Well, I will have already introduced this video, but you know how it works if you watched last month's video. I'll be back to wrap up the rest of the books that I read in the last 11 days of the month. Anyway, bye. Okay, so the next book that I read was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is one of BookTube's most talked about books of the year. Everyone freaking loves this book, and I also did really enjoy it. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And I'll tell you about what I think about it in a second once I've told you what it's about. If somehow you've missed what this book is about, this book follows our main character, Chloe Brown, who has a near-death experience, and after this realizes that her life is pretty boring. So she decides to create this list called her Get a Life list, and she enlists the help of her building superintendent Redford Morgan to help her check off the things from her list. And that's the basic premise, and Red and Chloe don't really like each other, but through various circumstances they start to kind of work together to check off her list, and through that a romance ensues, as I'm sure you can tell. I mean, the cover gives it away. I'm not spoiling anything. And it's a romance book. You know how it's gonna go. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really funny and sweet a lot of the time, and I loved the cat aspect. I love cats, so I always love to see a cat in a book. But I will say I didn't enjoy this book as much as I was expecting to. It actually took me quite a while to read. I think I was reading this for about 2 weeks. There was something about this book that just didn't make me want to like pick it up that much. I will say something I didn't like about this book was that I just found the sex scenes to be really uncomfortable. I don't know why. I don't really have an issue reading sex in books. It's not a big deal. But in this book it just weirded me out because Red and Chloe would be talking about each other. They would be being so sweet and cute, but then they'd start having sex and they'd start just the dirty talk just was so weird to me, and it just felt so like, I don't know, just like it just didn't fit the characters in my mind. I was like, this is really weird, and I felt kind of uncomfortable reading it, which doesn't really happen to me. I'm not that bothered for some reason. In this book, I did not like reading about it. I was like, this is uncomfortable. That's why I knocked it down 1.5 stars, is because yeah, reading those scenes, I just wasn't a huge fan. And then also, of course, like every romance book, there was some stupid conflict which could have been solved if people had just communicated. Miscommunication is one of my least favorite tropes ever, and of course it happened in this book, and I found it very frustrating. So yeah, the combination of the miscommunication and the awkward sex scenes just knocked it down for me. I feel like calling them awkward is doing this book a disservice. I don't think that they were written awkwardly. I think it just made me feel uncomfortable reading them. So yeah, that don't misinterpret that. I think they were well written, but they were not the type that I enjoy reading. Okay, I feel like I cleared that up. If you're looking for a cute, fun romance book with a disabled main character, then this should be the one for you. I'll definitely be picking up the next book in the trilogy. It's kind of a companion trilogy, each following one of the 3 sisters. So I'll definitely be picking up the sequel at some point. And the last book that I managed to finish in the month of October was The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. This one was such a surprise. Like, I was not planning to read this in October at all. I was actually planning to read some spooky books in October, but I just did not get around to it. But one day I just had finished my book and I was like, I don't know what to read next. I looked at my shelf and this one called my name, and I was like, just try a chapter, why not? And I picked it up, and this was actually such a quick read. I think I finished it in like 3 or 4 days, which, considering the fact that I am busy with university, that's pretty speedy for me at the moment. This book was really popular on BookTube back in 2015 when it came out, but I did hear a lot of like mixed reviews. People either loved it or they really didn't like it. And if you don't know what this book is about, this book basically follows our main character Mikey and his group of friends, and they live in this world where there are basically like the chosen ones, who they call the indie kids, and basically they're the kids where whenever something bad is happening, they're the ones who have to deal with it. And basically, instead of following these main characters who have to, you know, defeat the evil, they follow the side characters who are just living in this world where this evil stuff is happening, but they're not directly involved. So this book was really weird in the fact that it was pretty much just a contemporary story, but it was set in this world where this stuff was happening. And so you hear about it and you hear about how it does affect these side characters, but it's mostly just a contemporary story. And I thought it was really interesting. This was actually my first ever Patrick Ness book, and I definitely think I'll try more of his stuff in the future. So this follows Mikey and his group of friends, and it's just them trying to make it through the last couple of weeks of high school, and this stuff is happening with the indie kids, and so it's them trying to like not get involved in that and just finish up high school. And so yeah, it's really a contemporary story about mental health, relationships, the way that your friendships change when you're finishing high school, and just all that stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I think on Goodreads I gave it like a 3.5 or 3.75, and I think I'm gonna stick at that just because I wasn't a huge fan of our main character Mikey. He was a very, very jealous character, and I found that really frustrating personally. It was just really annoying seeing him being so jealous all the time. Apart from that, I did really enjoy this story. It's not like a new favorite or anything. I don't think I'll ever reread it, but I think it was such an interesting concept, and I do think that it was pretty well done. So yeah, I'm settling on a 3.75 out of 5 stars for this one. So these are all the physical books that I read in the month of October. Please let me know what books you read down below. I would love to know. Did you go for spooky vibes? Did you go for like dark academia? What did you go for in October? I would love to know. But that is all that I have for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. I'm trying to post videos on Fridays, but it might be every other Friday. So hopefully I'll see you next Friday or the one after that. But I'll see you hopefully very soon with another video. Bye. Someone is looking into my window. Stop it. So much. Someone is looking at me. Stop it. I'm just filming a video talking about books. I don't even know if they can see me, but like I can see her through her window, and I think she can see me through my window, and I'm like, can you stop looking at me? Anyway, it basically follows our main character Cassiopeia.